Well, hi class, we're starting week 3. I told you it was going to go fast. Next week we'll be at the halfway point for this 8-week course on the introduction to public speaking. I've got all the introductory videos graded and back to you, and overall, I was sure pleased with those presentations. So many of you just bring so much talent, just natural talent to the table already. And so really all I'm trying to do is to try to draw out that talent, those abilities that you already have, and try to build your confidence in the process. But all of you off to a good start with the presentation. And if you receive comments like, you're a very personal speaker, I like your conversational delivery style, those are really good comments, because what it means is you're speaking to the audience as if you were talking to friends. And that's all we want with public speaking. It's not like you have to turn into, some rhetorical giant. As I was walking through the streets of China, no. With public speaking, you just want to be able to relate to the individuals and talk to them like you're talking to friends. And then if you get your eye contact dialed in, so you're speaking to the camera, i.e. the audience, then when the viewers are watching your video, it almost appears as if you're speaking to them in real time. And that's what we're after when we're learning how to be an effective speaker, and we're doing so remotely. So I was real pleased with the overall level and ability that you bring to the table as speakers. Now, for a lot of you, just start trusting your natural ability and make sure when you speak, you're speaking right to the camera. You're looking right into that camera. If you do that, you're well on your way to being an engaging, effective public speaker, even if you're doing it by yourself in your room, talking to your recording device. So off to a good start with those speeches. Also, too, you've got a couple essays that you've done. I'm going to get to those this week. I'll get those graded. I won't go into as much detail with those. Usually you get a complete, maybe a comment, and you want to make sure that you were referring to some of the terms that were in bold ink in your readings on the modules. That's what I'm really looking for with those assignments. You're showing me that you did the reading by inserting some of those terms into your essay. So if you get an incomplete on that assignment, usually it's going to be because you didn't relate information back to those terms. And with any of those assignments, you can go back and do so. Just drop me an email. Hey, I went ahead and fixed my essay. I'll go back and I'll turn that incomplete to a complete. All right. This week, we're getting into modules 6, 7, and 8. We're going to be talking about speech structure, visual aids, and we get to the next speech assignment this week, which will be a critic speech. And understand, too, with the critic speech, what I'm after with this presentation more than anything else is I'm using this assignment to teach you how to put an outline together for a speech. With the critic speech and then the 2 speeches to follow, the informative speech and the persuasive speech, all 3 of those speeches will require you to turn in an outline before you do the actual presentations. And really the whole deal with the outlines is the outline is a tool that you're creating to help you both practice and learn the speech and to deliver the presentation. So that's why we always do outlines for public speaking, and we don't use essays, because if I'm going to use an essay and I'm going to use that to both to learn and then deliver the speech, I want to be able to glance down and easily find my place. With an outline, we spread everything out. We have headings. There's a nice structural flow to the overall outline, as opposed to if I was speaking and using an essay for my notes, when I can't think of that next line, when I glance down at the outline, it's much harder to find my place. So that's why we use outlines. It's a tool that we can use both to practice and deliver the speech, and it spreads everything out so it's easy to glance down and find your place. One thing you want to remember when you're putting an outline together is a very simple rule: 1 sentence per subpoint. And so that means for every big A, little a, for every one, you just want a sentence. You don't want to have an outline where you have a subpoint and then you cram a paragraph of information, because then it makes it harder to glance down in the middle of a paragraph and find your place and be able to get that next line going and continue on so the speech is flowing and a nice, comfortable, smooth flow to your presentation. So that's why we're going to use outlines. We're going to use the Critic Speech assignment to learn how to put an outline together. And you want to make sure that you're reading all of the instructional materials in the modules and that you're watching all the instructional videos. One of the first assignments that you're going to have this week is to do the quiz on speech structure. You will not be able to answer that quiz correctly unless you watch the video on the preceding page on outline construction. And when we get to the quiz on speech structure, that's going to tell me who's watching the instructional videos and who is not. So if you try to answer that with what you think the outline should look like, you're going to get an incomplete. You're probably going to get a 0 on the quiz. If you watch the video on outline construction, the last part of that video, I walk you through how to answer the quiz and what the outline should look like as an answer to the quiz. I mean, if you watch that video, you should have no problems getting a full 10 on the actual quiz. Probably couldn't do any better unless I took it for you. So I really lay that out clearly. And so you want to make sure that you're watching all of the instructional materials. You're reading all of the instructional materials contained on the module, because if you don't, you're going to be lost with the assignment starting with that quiz on speech structure. And then we get to each of the next assignments. You won't know how to put the outline together for the critic speech, the informative speech, the persuasive speech, unless you watch those instructional videos. So make sure you're watching everything. And I can kind of tell if I put out an instructional video and then I have 3 views on it, then I'm not expecting much from the overall assignments. So you've got to make sure you're watching all of the information and you're reading all of the information that you need to be successful in the class. And it's not fair to me as an instructor, because I put a lot of time into the instructional videos and I put a lot of time into the instructional pages. If you just ignore that and then you jack up your assignment, don't expect me then to become your private tutor and explain everything that you're doing wrong. All I'm going to do is to refer you to the pages or the videos that you need to go to get the information so you can be successful on the assignments. So if you're not in the habit of reading everything and watching everything, you need to do so, because you're not going to be able to meet your goals in the class. You're not going to be able to meet my student learning objectives for the course unless you're taking in all of the information available to you from an instructional standpoint. So you've got to make sure you get into the habit of reading everything, watching everything, so you can excel on each of your assignments. With the critic speech coming up, that's a real simple speech. Essentially, what I'm asking you to do with that assignment is to just take anything that can be viewed as a form of entertainment. So you could do your speech on a movie, it could be on a TV show, it could be on a book, it could be on a video game. I consider eating a form of entertainment. You could do a speech on a restaurant. So anything that can be described and evaluated can work as a topic for the speech. Again, if you want to make it real easy, pick your favorite show on Netflix or maybe a movie that you've seen recently. Use that as the topic for your speech. And essentially, what you're going to do in that speech, you're going to create an outline. You're going to learn how to formulate an introduction to an outline, what goes in the body of the outline, how to put together a conclusion. And in the body of the speech, essentially, you're going to do 2 main things, or have 2 subtopics in the body of the speech. The first will be your description. That's where you tell us about the movie. If you do it on a movie or TV show, Don't give the play-by-play all the way through the movie. Just an overview, because it may be that you talk about a show you really not like on Netflix and we haven't seen it, so don't ruin it for us. Just a little overview on the description. Here's what it's about, kind of like if you're reading a movie review. They don't tell you what happens at the end. They don't tell you who dies. So just an overview, brief description, maybe talk about, the main characters and the actors that portray those characters. Maybe mention the director, but you're just going to give some very general descriptive information as one main point in the speech. And then your second main point will focus on your evaluation. That will be the things that you liked and didn't like and why. So real simple, easy speech on a form of entertainment. We're going to use the critic speech to learn how to put a speech outline together. And you'll notice you have a couple days between the deadline for getting your outline in and the due date for the video. And so what I'm after here, and you should have learned this last week, especially in the module on speech delivery, and I have that one page where I talk about how to efficiently and effectively practice a speech. The best way to prepare for a speech is to always have your outline for the speech, i.e. your speech is written several days in advance of the actual due date. Now you use your outline to practice your speech over and over again so you have it down by the time you give your presentation. I noticed with some of you with the introductory speeches, you would mention things like, oh, this is my 5th take, my 6th take, I hope it's good enough. Look, that's not the way to practice a speech, right? It's not real world. Like if you're giving a presentation in front of a live audience, you wouldn't get up there, get a couple lines in and go, oh, cut. And then you do it a second time, then a third time. No, you learn the speech in its entirety. So now when it's time to present this speech, I can deliver the speech all in one take. So that's what you're after. The way to do that is to have some time between finishing the outline and then doing the actual presentation. For the critic speech, to get it complete, your eyes must be on the camera at least half the time. So 50% of the time, I want your eyes on the camera. But that's cool. That means that the other half, you can glance down at your outline. That's why, again, we're using an outline and not an essay, so we can look down at the outline, easily see the next line, look up, and then deliver the line. So for the critic speech, show me that you practice your speech enough so that you can look at the viewers, i.e. the camera, at least 50% of the time. What we don't want is to watch you read your speech straight from the outline. And so I don't want your eyes on the screen, right? And some of you, I shouldn't say some of you, but in the past I have students, you can tell they're reading their speech right from the screen, and you can see their head move, kind of see their eyes. They wear glasses. We see the pages reflected right on the glasses. So you want to make sure that you're giving the impression that you're speaking directly to the audience. And the way that you do that is you look into the camera. So let's make sure our eye contact is at least at 50%. If you do that, and if you structure your speech correctly, you're going to get it complete on the assignment. So the critic speech right around the corner. All right. The last thing I want to talk about today, and then I'm going to jump on the modules real quick, just to kind of show you where everything is. You're getting all the information to do well in the class. You know where to find it, especially for the assignments that we're going to be doing this week. And two, the 3 modules this week, we're going to kind of bleed into next week a little bit. So that's going to give you a little bit more time between turning in your outline and then having at least a couple days to practice your speech before you actually turn in the video. But the last thing I'd like to talk about before we jump on the modules, I just put an extra credit opportunity up on your Canvas shell. It's at the very bottom of the modules. And the extra credit assignment is, there's a book that I want you to read. It's called Miseducated. It's by Brandon Fleming. And kind of my deal with textbooks is that I haven't used a textbook the last 10 years that I've been teaching. I've never been a fan of using textbooks. I feel it's a ripoff to the student, especially if you get an instructor that just teaches out of the textbook. It's like I'm paying double, right, for the information that I'm getting, right? I'm paying my tuition so I can listen to the instructor teach me about whatever the subject is. But then I also have to buy this overpriced textbook that also is going to give me instructions. Can I just have one or the other, right? Can I read the book to learn, or can I listen to the instructor? Why do I have to do both? And so because of that, I always thought, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about public speaking. So I'm not going to burden you with reading a boring textbook that pretty much is just going to repeat the stuff that I'm going to say in the classroom. But every once in a while, I find a book that I think could work really well, more from an inspirational standpoint than an instructional standpoint. So the book that I'd like you to read as an extra credit opportunity is called Miseducated. It's by Brandon Fleming. And essentially, it's a story of this disadvantaged youth, everything going against this poor kid, but still he was able to develop himself into one of the top speech and debate coaches in the nation. He now runs a high school program out of Harvard University with kids out of the inner city in Atlanta, Georgia. And they're winning the world championships in debate, not the United States, the world championships in debate each and every year. It's his story, how he developed his voice and how he's using what he's learned about public speaking to change the lives of others. And so what I'm asking for extra credit, read the book. You can get it on Amazon. It's like $15.99, so you don't have to pay, those jacked up prices for textbooks. $15.99. Read the book, and then for the extra credit, and you can do one of two things. You can either write an essay, or you can actually record yourself giving a presentation and just tell me what you thought about the book, especially whether or not you think it would be a good supplemental text to have for this course. So if you do that, that's a big extra credit opportunity, and that's something you can use when we negotiate for your grade at the end of the semester. You can tell me, hey, I read the book, here's what I learned, here's the information that I shared with you as to why I think you should use the book or shouldn't use the book. And so that can be a nice little feather in your cap when we finally get to the point where we talk about letter grades at the end of the semester. And so I value your opinion as a student. Tell me whether or not you think this book would work as a supplemental text for the class. That would really help me out a lot. Your opinion, right? You guys as students, you're the paying customers. You have a lot more power than you realize. So let me know whether you think it would be a good addition to the course. All right, last thing, let's go ahead and jump on the modules quickly. I'm just going to point out a couple things as far as where to find information so that you can do really well, both on the quiz on speech structure and especially for the upcoming Critic Speech. Let's go to the modules now. All right, here, so we take a look at the modules for this week. So we have the module on speech structure and on the critic speech, and then also module on visual aids. And then also notice too that on the critic speech, your outline is due on the 4th, but the actual speech recording is not due until the 8th. So you've got some days there to practice your speech. Also too, in last week's modules, you want to make sure that you review the speech delivery techniques, because these are the things that I want to start seeing in the presentation, and how to effectively practice your speech. This right here is going to help you be more successful when you actually practice and then submit the presentation of your critic speech. Also too, if we go to the very bottom, before we do that, the module that you want to make sure you pay particular attention to this week is the module on structure. And then right here, you want to make sure that you watch this instructional video on outline construction. And I do 3 things in this lecture. First, I give you just a basic overview of how to structure a speech. Introduction, body, conclusion, the necessary ingredients in the instruction, what goes in the body of the speech, transitions that connect the main points, how to organize and structure the conclusion to a speech, how to end a speech effectively by always referring at the end of the speech, go back and refer to your opening attention getter, gives the speech a nice sandwich effect. All of those things I discussed in the first third of the lecture. Then we take the general information about speech structure, and then I show you how to apply it specifically by covering the outline format that I want you to follow for the critic speech. And there you're going to see there are two main points, description and an evaluation. And then the last part of the lecture, I talk about how to get a perfect score on the quiz on speech structure. And at the very end, I basically show, look, here's what the answer should look like when you're creating an outline as an answer to the quiz on speech structure. And also, too, with the topics there, like you can choose McDonald's, In-N-Out, Burger King. Look, I'm not looking for a persuasive speech on fast food leads to obesity, right? If you want to do that as a persuasive speech, you can when we get to the persuasive speeches. The only reason I use those as topics for the speech is I'm pretty confident that everybody knows enough about McDonald's or Burger King or In-N-Out that you can come up with a couple lines of content when you're putting the actual outline together. So that's why I'm using those topics, right? I don't eat fast food, so I'm with you, right? But it's not, the speech shouldn't be on McDonald's is bad. You know, it leads to obesity. I just want you to use that because you're familiar enough with what that topic is that you can come up with a couple lines of content. And in the body of the speech, in the description and the evaluation, I only need 2 subpoints. So not a lot of information. What I'm after there is that you're demonstrating, you know, the basic organizational structural format for a critic speech. And so if you watch this video, you'll have that down pat. And if you get a low score on the quiz, I'm going to tell you, go back, watch the video on outline construction. And then back on the modules, if you're looking for even more information, more instructional information, I've got past lectures on each of the modules that you're covering here on my weekly course lecture. So I could go down here to week 3. I can click on that. And now I've got another instructional video that's going to walk me through the outline format for the critic speech. So you have lots of instructional materials, but it's your responsibility to make sure that you're reading everything in the modules and you're watching all of the instructional videos so that you can excel on each of your assignments. Look, I try to make it as easy as possible. I want you to do well. I want stuff to be clear. I'm not trying to fool anybody, but when we're not in the classroom, there's even more responsibility on you to make sure you're getting to the information that you need that's available on the module so you can be successful on each of the assignments. And then the last thing, back to the course modules, here at the very end of the modules is the extra credit assignment that I was telling you about. That's your book review on Brandon Fleming's Miseducated. All right, kids, lots to do this week. Let's keep working hard. This is going to be a great week because once you learn how to structure a speech, public speaking becomes so much easier. And I guarantee you can take the structural formats that you're going to learn in this class on how to structure speeches, and you can use that as the same structural foundation for all of your essays and research and term papers that you do in your future collegiate life. So, real important week. Get the structure down. That's going to have dividends for you for the rest of your college career. Have a good week, and I'm looking forward to another round of excellent speeches as you guys start getting to your critic speech presentations. Keep working hard, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.